Okay. Video's ready. Great. Hello, everybody. Let's get started. Let me share screen. Oops. Sierra, would you be able to take over letting people in from the waiting room?
I got it. Sorry, I was responding to a message.
Oh, no worries. All right, cool. Let's share screen. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. We've been off the last couple of weeks to prepare a very special set of the next 3 brain clubs, ABB behind the scenes. Tonight, we'll be looking at autonomy and the role of intuition. Before we begin, closed captions are enabled. You just have to toggle it on if you'd like to use it. Depending on your version of Zoom,
Recording in progress.
you might see the live transcript closed captioning icon. If not, look for the more ... and choose show subtitles. You can do the same and choose hide subtitles if you want to turn it off. If you're new to Brain Club, this is a great day to join. And if you're returning, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. Brain Club is our weekly education program for purposes of demonstrating All Brains Belong's approach to neuro-inclusive culture, for purposes of shifting broader community awareness about the topics of interest and importance to the neurodivergent community, and hopefully also promoting new ways of thinking and being in the world. And hopefully then you take it forth to the rest of your lives, and that is how culture change happens. While we hope that this is a place where you feel safe and supported from your very first time and every time, this is not a support group. It's not a place for medical or mental health advice, although we discuss health topics sometimes. This is an education program. It's not the right place to make personal requests or address personalized needs. It's also not a neurodivergent affinity space. Everyone is welcome to be here and to learn and observe what a neuro-inclusive space looks like and think about how maybe some of these topics connect to the rest of your life. There is no one right way to participate at Brain Club. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. Feel free to walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks or anything else that needs doing. We may have some time at the end for some mouthword discussion. Otherwise, we'll have the chat open as we watch a pre-recorded interview. In addition to affirming all aspects of identity, one of the ways that other ways that we keep this to be a safe environment for all people to participate is that we think about the group's collective needs over that of any one individual. And Lizzie's going to put some logistics questions and answers in the chat. That's my visual support to make sure I can see the chat. All right, great. All right, so if it's your first time at Brain Club, it's okay to not understand what's happening, especially because we're gonna be doing things a little bit differently tonight that we'll hear about in just a minute. Keep coming back. All right, before we get going into our current topic, I want to make an announcement. We launched our first installment of the Brain Club Digital Resource Library today, hot off the presses. So as many of you know, you could always access Brain Club recordings on our website at no cost, but it's really hard to find what you're looking for because it's like organized by day. And if you don't know the date of what you're looking for, it's really hard to find it. So today we launched a fully searchable digital resource library. This installment is healthcare topics only. In a couple of weeks, it'll be all the topics. So employment, relationships, regulation, family, all the topics that we do at Brain Club, searchable by topic. But for our healthcare, there are some extra features. In addition to the recording, there's also text summaries and infographics and plain language summaries. So we invite you to check it out. Thanks, Lizzie linked it in the chat. All right, so I'll look back. Almost a year ago, we made a big change to Brain Club in response to community feedback, we launched a new format, a 45-minute program that had a different format. So panelists had requested initially to be without chat. We did an experiment being without chat, and then people missed chat. So sort of figured out that we're going to universal design for participation. Chat is available, but we've been using it intentionally and slowly and thoughtfully so that we can think about chat as the equivalent of MouthWords participation. We've also had different styles of formats, bringing in more community members, sharing lived expertise, and several other things that we'll be reflecting on for the next 3 weeks together. And one of the big things that we did was we started a community moderator panel. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce and pass the mic to one of our community moderators, Liz Carney.
Thank you, Mel. To everyone here, welcome. If this is your first time, I want to welcome you, or if it's close to your first time, thanks for coming back. We're so glad to have you here. Mel asked me to come on and kind of reflect on my experience as being part of the moderator group. I think it is and has been a really great group when you see all of the table setting that Mel just went through. All of that started with a discussion, and the discussions were around, what are our values? How can we care for the community? How can we balance the needs of the community? How do we want to show up? How do we want to educate? And from that came all the slides that you just saw, and how kind of carefully and thoughtfully the volunteers really wanted to make this space, while also really delineating like what we are and what we can and can't do. This may be my only chance to give the moderators their flowers. So I wanted to just say, thanks to Mel. I think one thing that Mel does so well is brings us together, and from the start, she has really kind of understood what her gifts are and what her brain is. And she really gives us the framework for how to think and talk and be creative and be our best selves. And when you see Mel in this space, that is who she is in all spaces. And that's such a gift to us. When I think about Amy, Amy is so gifted at being able to translate their experience into a universal experience. And hopefully that will play out in this presentation today. When I think of Sarah, they have a real knack for taking the structures and analyzing it, and always being curious and asking the question, what does this mean? What are the biological underpinnings of what's going on here? Why is it important from an evolution standpoint? And it's all important. And then Rye, I think, really is a bit of is the heart of our group in a lot of ways. They're really pulling us in, pulling us down, helping us think about who could be more included in the space, and really rooting it in kind of like having empathy for the folks who have been pushed down in the systems. And Rye really represents that well. Let's see. one of the things that came up in our discussions, and I'm not sure if it will be included here today, is that in the instances where we have been interviewed and been included in the interviews and these presentations, when we go back and look at them, maybe 6 months later, there's a bit of a cringe factor sometimes. And, we kind of have talked about that. And what I wanted to say about that is that I think it shows growth. This space is about continually growing, understanding things in a different way, accepting who you were, who had the information that they had at that point in time, and moving forward. And so I would say to any past panelists or future panelists, if you see content and you think to yourself, oh boy, I've really changed since then. I don't know if I feel that way anymore. Take it as a sign that it is that it's part of your growth. And we really want to celebrate that in this space. Mel, I don't know if you want to maybe allow me to start explaining some of the next slides.
Yeah, I can share screen and get them up. Go for it, Liz.
Great. So again, we are the panel. It's Liz Carney, Amy Noyes, Sari Knutson, and Rye. Oh goodness, I'm not gonna say Rye's last name correctly, so I won't try. And so for August, so we came together as a group a little while ago, and we said, "Hey Mel, let's interview you, like no holds barred, and see what happens." Because I think if you've been coming to these meetings, you understand a little bit of the origin story of All Brains Belong, but believe it or not, I think we mined some fresh nuggets in this one. Also, I want to talk a minute about the role of PDA, that aspect. If you are new and you don't know what PDA is, it stands for pathological demand avoidance, or pervasive or persistent drive for autonomy. And we'll get into this a little bit, but it is it is the instance of having a nervous system that is overly attuned to the environment and easily picks up threat. And so, and again, biologically, that takes us and makes us safer. But it's also something that keeps us too safe. And so it's definitely, when you're living with PDA, you have to balance what your body is telling you with what the environment is actually reflecting. And I think Mel will talk about that and their experience of that a little bit. So that's today's Brain Club. Next week, we'll do a part 2 interview that will go over systems for healthcare and community. And then after that, we're going to talk about the future of Brain Club with some input from a community panel that the moderators did, and also from the community here. And I'm really looking forward to that one. So the way that the presentation, or the way that the format is going to go tonight is we're going to have a 35-minute presentation, and then we'll take a few minutes at the end to sum up some points and some themes. And if there's time, we'll take some reflections, some questions, and then we can all go about our evenings.
I don't know what you're gonna ask me.
Yeah, so just to get started with that, first question, so many neurodivergent people end up in burnout and their employment becomes tenuous. I'm curious how you are able to create a nonprofit in the midst of autistic burnout.
So I think like to answer that question, it requires like rewinding and capturing the emotional intensity of like PDA fear. It's not just PDA rage. I feel like I talk about PDA rage like a lot. Like rage is like an emotion that I feel on the regular, so I like name it and refer to it a lot. But fear is not an emotion that I mean, like, is anybody comfortable with fear? I don't know, but like I'm not. And so like I remember, I mean, it's not like a cohesive movie that I watch in my head a lot, but like I have snapshots of it, of like the desperation of like what it is to be a PDAer who is trapped in the corner, like the caged
Mhm.
animal in the corner. It's not like a subtle phenomenon. And I actually I hadn't had that experience before because in general, as a PDAer, I get the hell out of environments that are unsafe. I cut off so many relationships. Like, oh, you're unsafe. Like, and I've had relative privilege. I mean, of like all my layers of privilege, that's one of my layers of privilege that I have in general been able to leave relationships and leave environments that are unsafe for me. I don't do it immediately. And like, it might take me a while to realize that like a job is unsafe or a relationship's unsafe or whatever. But like in this instance, this was, this is purely unambiguously dangerous for me and my family. And I have tried through the usual channels to advocate for myself and to like name my truth.
What you just described reminds me of something that Amy Noyes has said to me, and I think about it all the time now, which is they said, I need to do things that allow me to stay in choice.
Ooh.
And I really like that, and I really have tried to kind of like incorporate that into my thinking and framing of things, because that is the difference between my nervous system being safe and my nervous system feeling like it's in threat. Because the choices can be bad, but as long as I still get to make them.
Yes. Yeah, yes. So like the story of All Brains Belong is the story of not being in choice. And that for me was the most unsafe I have ever felt.
Say more about that.
It's COVID.
Yeah.
And we, as a pool of 5 doctors, the 3 doctors who were under 70 years old decided we would cover the hospital and we would have the 2 older doctors over 70 not
Yep.
be call pool. So we were
Mhm.
3 people covering our patients in the hospital. So it was 24-hour, 7-day straight call. We decided that it would be better to do that because we thought we were all going to get COVID. And we thought that the worst
Oh,
thing that
yeah.
could happen is for us to get COVID and then have someone have to do extra call. So we're going to take 7 days straight and then have 2 weeks of clinic. If we get COVID, we're going to present in week 2 during clinic, not in
Wow.
hospital
Yeah.
call. And we will have
Wow.
hopefully recovered by the time it's time to go back and do it again. So we did that and we didn't know how long it was going to last.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's been like a year and a half and we're like still doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd be like getting called at 2 in the morning and I'd have to go into the hospital and like admit a sick patient and like think I'm gonna get COVID. I would love to capture it. It's interesting, like in the book,
Mhm.
I feel disingenuous not telling this story because it feels like you can't really get it if you don't know the story. And like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
core of the story is that when I advocated to say it's not safe for me to be awake 24/7 for a week at a time, I was told not only you're not fulfilling your contract, but I was given a letter. We are concerned about your psychiatric health.
Wow.
That's the moment. That's the PDA rage
Wow.
and fear. So it's not just
Yeah.
I'm afraid of getting COVID, and it's not just
Wow.
I'm afraid of whatever. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So like I have to figure out some way of telling that, because the intensity of that is what says
Mhm.
I don't care that I'm in burnout. I need out. This is
Yeah.
safe for me. The expectations on me are so incompatible with
Mhm.
not just living the life I want to live, but it's like incompatible with like surviving.
Mm.
Be able to tell me, you need to, you're going to cover the hospital indefinitely, 24 hours, 7 days straight for the
Yeah.
basically indefinitely. And I don't care that you ran your car off the road, and I don't care that you're flipping your lid at your family, and I don't care that you're telling me you don't like it, and I don't care how you feel. Um, Oh, by the way, you have to, or you don't have a job anymore. That's what they said.
Well, and just knowing you as much as I know you as my physician, as like, in community and like in your leadership style, to that is like so tearing at the core value of basically like of who you are. Incredible.
But like you see, it's like tearfulness. It's like the
Yeah.
intensity of it all. That
Yes. That's what I'm want that's the part of the curiosity. And I mean that's why the question came to me, because I knew so many pieces of the story. And I also know in terms of how protective you are of the practice and All Brains Belong, like I knew that like there was some protective piece of like what you're doing. So I knew, but I think for me, what is astonishing is the sort of rising of the phoenix or something, like out of the burning of the ashes of burning all of that down, saying, no, I know that not only do I need my needs met as a physician, but I know there's patients, I know my patients, and I know my patients are not getting the care they need.
what I was gonna say is like I felt like at that time I was able to provide medical care in
Yeah.
like the way that was like the need that was expected. Like I was able to provide medical care in a way that like the patients got what they need from
Mhm.
me, but I could like forecast that like this is not sustainable. This like I don't ever want to be in a place where I can't provide medical care, because I really thought I was gonna die. Like I really,
Yeah.
and like not
That's
even
that's the
medically.
part for about the question is sort of like, 'cause I know what it feels like. I thought I was gonna die too. In the big burnout, because like probably you could map out all the little, like the big burnouts at the time. But to me, it's like the autism diagnosis and like that kind of burnout is the burnout of like, I have to change something or I'm gonna die.
I'm just gonna die. I don't know
Hmm.
the mechanism, but like
Yeah.
I just know that this is not this
It's not sustainable.
not sustainable. I'm like, what does it mean to like not be sustainable? I just like, I don't know, I thought I'd have a heart attack or stroke. I like thought that that was
Hmm.
going to be happening, and I was definitely going to get COVID. I need to not die. I need to not bring COVID home to my baby.
Hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
that was my truth. And then like the deep shame of like, I hope they don't find me out, that like I care more about not dying.
I
So
mean, what your story to me is just so representative of how, prior to like burnout, prior to this, like your story is representing how much PDA is a protector, is such a deep protection.
yes, I deeply feel that, because it's I think there's like levels of like there's a burnout experience, and then there's the PDA rage, fear, involuntary limbic response to activate. I didn't start All Brains Belong in dorsal vagal shutdown. I was in activation because I had to be. And when I was in dorsal vagal shutdown, I was not starting All Brains Belong. When I was first threatened by my employer, um, I was in dorsal vagal shutdown, and I lost the ability to speak and brush my teeth and leave my chair and all of that. And like I've told that story.
Mhm.
But I think it's difficult to appreciate how I got there without the backstory,
Yes,
because
I
I'm not a
agree.
dorsal, like I've been in dorsal, I can literally count on one hand the number of times I've been in true dorsal vagal shutdown.
Mhm.
It's an experience that I think my PDA keeps me out of a lot of the time, because I don't
Mhm. Mhm.
tolerate it. I don't tolerate it. It feels terrible. I'll like be in it for a day or two, and then I'll like pattern match it and be like, oh no, not that again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like anyway, I think that that experience is probably relatable to other people.
Mhm.
But like I go right to activation. I live in sympathetic activation. I live here.
Yeah.
I live here. So
Yeah.
so to tell the story of like how'd you start All Brains Belong while you were like so dysregulated, it's because I live in sympathetic activation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That makes a
So
lot of sense. That
I may as well
makes
start a
so much-
nonprofit.
Sympathetic overdrive
Yeah.
and navigating that. And we all know, like, finally there's words that, you know, and all the special different methods of limbic system retraining that are out there, and all of the like coherent things that are finally being talked about, and like you know, how to fix ourselves, right? Like there's these all these new ways to fix ourselves.
I have such a limbic response to that stuff. I don't want to retrain my nervous system. My nervous system is like what keeps me alive.
It's like, how do you navigate your own limbic system? And like, you know, sympathetic isn't always bad and parasympathetic isn't always bad. Like they're really important places to be.
Yeah.
And cultivate safety inside of. And we've been taught to not trust them.
When I notice my nervous system, I have trained myself to assume that my sympathetic nervous system is not reacting to me. It's reacting to my environment. So sometimes that becomes a clue that something is unsafe,
Right.
even before I cognitively know.
Right.
A lot of times I know already, you know, like Medicaid, you're unsafe. Cognitively, I know that, but like if I get going about it, I notice that I'm doing the fight thing, I'm emailing, I'm talking, I'm telling the story, I'm doing the thing, I'm writing letters, and then I crash. Oh, I have an energy disorder. I can't spend my energy this way. It's not because my sympathetic nervous system did the wrong thing. It's
Right.
that I don't feel my internal body signals the way that other people do. And so I overshoot and I overspend energy. How do I manage that? Like, I just know it's a thing, try to do better next time, try to sort of like have an awareness of like, oh, you can't talk about Medicaid for an hour. You can only talk about Medicaid for 45 minutes or whatever. You can't talk about Medicaid all day. I also, if I like, I sort of tolerate sympathetic overactivation. I don't tolerate dorsal vagal shutdown. I don't tolerate that feeling of like numbness, dissociation, crashing. I don't tolerate that feeling. I hate it. I find it so just I don't have any skills in it. I hate it. So when I'm in sympathetic overdrive, I'm like, great, I can do something with this. So I like try to be in a state of agency all the time, which is counteractive, like pacing and you know all of that. So at least I like try to be laying flat while I'm doing stuff to cope with my sympathetic overdrive. I think maybe that's another thing I do.
Yeah. I mean, that it sounds like on a certain level, you're saying like, you know, being in that sympathetic state is your body telling you we need to put some energy here because this thing is really important.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like a thing you want to put energy in. And other times it's a thing that you have to put energy in and you know it's going to make you crash.
Yeah.
And you don't really have a choice, but you have to do it. And then other times you can be like, you know, getting into this state is going to give me energy to get to the next part
Yeah.
of my day.
Yeah, that's true.
Energy for because I'm not going to have energy for. So if I jack myself up now, then I'm going to be able to get through it. And then I'll be able to calm down and maybe not crash as hard.
Yes, I agree. The other thing is I still have collected clues after the crash. I am able to reflect and be like, actually, these are not all the same. So I'm going to pick and choose. Like, I don't go to school, like patient school meetings anymore because my heart rate's 200, because my autonomic nervous system says that everything to do with that situation is unsafe. It actually doesn't help my patient. It just hurts my health and my ability to care for other patients and my family and myself. So I don't go.
I feel like Brain Club in a microcosm is a lot like that, because I feel like it's a continuous discovery of like, oh right, this thing doesn't work for me. I need to let go of it and turn towards this thing does work for me, and I can go towards this thing. And it seems to happen both like naturally and instinctually, and it all has to kind of do with remembering what you're getting back in touch with your gut and what your gut is telling you.
That is like, I think for me, like the biggest thing of whatever this journey of the past 3.5 years has been, or 4 years, 4 years since my autism diagnosis. Yeah, that was 4 years last month. So it's like it's got to be. I mean, it has not been all or nothing, but like the practice of when I have some intentional, like top-down cognitive awareness, it's like, oh, I'm gonna work on intuition. Oh, that means I have to actually go with my gut every time, over and over and over again. And like, I am going to, that doesn't, I don't know, I don't trust it. So I gotta ask 50,000 people and get their consultation on like whether I should do the thing that is safe for me and avoid the thing that is unsafe for me. And I'm like, now, like, I first go with my gut, and then like, I actually probably need to do some problem solving. I'll reach out for help, but because I am so, what's the word? I'm so used to, or I'm so like acclimated to sympathetic activation or sympathetic overdrive, I can do stuff in this place.
Something that is occurring to me was like, I wonder, in that dorsal vagal shutdown, there's silence. So you're like in total opposite movement than the sympathetic. And I'm wondering in that if it actually forced rest for you, and then in that the inspiration, like the energy could come.
No,
Because no,
that happens a
okay.
lot. I just knew I didn't tolerate this state, and I had, in many ways, I mean, the other thing that's important about this is that I got my autism diagnosis during that dorsal vagal shutdown. So I got my autism about diagnosis in that week.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
like dorsal vagal shutdown, I don't tolerate this. I don't know why my body doesn't move, and I don't. Now I have this like, the way that people describe, like the eureka moment and the
Yeah.
kaleidoscope and the rainbow and the, like,
Yeah. Okay.
so that happens.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, this is not sustainable. I have to have a job. I have student loans and a mortgage and a baby, and like I got to do something. And like PDA in the background of like, I'm gonna shut you down now because it's the computer blue screen of death. That's what dorsal vagal shutdown is, I think.
Yeah.
So PDA shuts you. I'm gonna shut you down because you're feeling so unsafe in a way that like, I mean, I wouldn't say that like not a lot of nervous systems would feel unsafe in this situation. I think that probably most nervous systems would feel
Yeah.
unsafe in this situation.
Yeah.
But so I'm not like, oh, this was a disproportionate response. I also don't care if it was a disproportionate response because it was my response. So PDA
Yeah.
shut down. And then I think your point about like, I needed to rest, it didn't feel like rest. It felt like the computer's going to catch on fire. It's like the surge protector. The
Yeah.
PDA surge protector is what I think dorsal vagal shutdown is for me.
Mhm.
So surge protector goes, the circuit blows, I'm shut down, and then like in the background, I have to like my ADHD. And like I don't necessarily think that it's helpful to like parse out like this is my
Yeah.
autism, but like in
Yeah.
this instance, this is my ADHD that is rapidly ideating all the time in a way that has
Yeah.
generally distracting to me, and like generally I don't, at that time I like didn't have like a place for it, but like
Mhm.
that's the part of me that saved my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I could, the autistic make a list and follow it thing, like I could do that. I just had to like have the idea first and like
Yeah.
needs to happen. This needs to happen. And the other thing that was important about that is I what's the word I'm going to say about this is like there were like different components that needed to be met. So one is I
Mhm.
need to like pay my student loans and my mortgage. Two is that I knew I've never run a practice and I never wanted to run a practice, but I like kind of knew kind of what the components were. So I didn't have to like when you say like how'd you do this in burnout, I wasn't like starting from complete scratch. Like I'd had some training in practice management.
Mhm.
I like knew that like if you bill insurance, you could like probably figure out how much the insurance pays you, and like you could look it up on their website. I kind of like knew
Mhm.
that that was maybe a thing. I'd never done it before, but like
What I want to just reiterate was, it's interesting because like I might have my experience of the burnout and the like what I might call like a still small voice because my ADHD wasn't forward at the time because I was still so much in sympathetic. But that's what I was wondering was like in the midst of this like dorsal shutdown, I didn't know that that had gotten to that point, but I knew there was this, leaving your job and coming in to then say I'm going to start this. But I think what's so amazing, I think, to think about people at Brain Club and think about that story and think about that, the way in which we could doubt ourselves in the midst of what the world is telling us. Like, I'm worried, Mel, about your psychiatric care. Like, I'm worried about you. I'm like this, like outside, like instead of listening to you, instead of hearing you, instead of trusting you, and have been able to help me pull out that voice that was chattering to me that I didn't have the confidence to listen to.
yeah,
And there's something that's extraordinary about the way that you were able to shift into what you knew so that I'm a good doctor. I know I can do this. And that chattering came forward. You were able to listen to it. And I just wonder how many people might have that chatter that can't listen to it because of the way the world has treated them.
absolutely. And I feel like I have to name another layer of privilege because of the nature of the kind of job that I happen to have, which of course
Mhm.
is like on the basis of like so I'm white. I went to college. Yes, I have, I have a $500,000 in student loans, but like I went to college. So like already I am more likely to have access to medical school than other
Yeah.
people. So I
Mhm.
because of the nature of the job that the career I end up, it's hard to say choosing because I this unearned privilege that got me here, but like because of the nature of the job that I have,
Mhm.
my job is the kind of thing that insurance companies pay for.
Yeah.
So, like already I didn't have to do the little voice that says you can't do it. I didn't really, I mean, I had that voice. I always have that voice, but like
Yeah.
I don't care
Yeah.
about it because I have a thing that I could bill an insurance company for because of what my job is. If my job were something else,
Yeah.
it would not have happened so quickly. Also, I have an
Interesting.
intolerance for delayed gratification. So most people who start a small business, it's the long game, right? Like think about how long it has taken, right? So like all the things, right? So me, I took 2 weeks off from work. I took FMLA and I started a nonprofit. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
because I had to. I have two
yeah.
weeks. I also
Hmm.
had the privilege of being able to save. I kind of calculated, not me calculated because I'm dyscalculia, but like I asked my husband, like, how many weeks can I go without working? And I could go a few months. So it was very urgent.
Last question. What role does patient autonomy play in your model of care, and how do you support informed collaborative decision making with your patients?
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Um, I would say like rewinding. Patient autonomy has, I'm not even sure like how it all began. I don't remember, but patient autonomy, maybe that's just as a PDA, or I didn't ever make that
Mhm.
connection before. Patient autonomy has been like the most important thing to me, like through all of my training and beyond. And when I saw it being violated, I would rage. And I would rage at individuals who didn't even know they were doing it. They were just like doing system stuff. Like, oh, we're gonna like take you to surgery, sign this form. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they have no idea what you're about to do. They have no idea. So I'd like
Yeah.
see stuff like that. Or I'd be like, well, here's your pill, go and take it. And I'd see that and be like, they don't know what it is. Let alone what do they want to take it? Like I would rage as like a little first year medical student. I would rage about this all the time. And when you like look at my blog for medical school, it's like raging about the violation of patient autonomy. That's what the blog's about.
Mhm.
So I'd say that that's like a premise or preface to my answer to your question. So historically, even though I think that there are a lot, like I have a certification in motivational interviewing, I think by and large, motivational interviewing is not neuro-inclusive, at least in the way that it is mostly delivered, in that, reliance on open-ended questions, for example. Maybe that's just the one part. The reliance on open-ended questions and the glorification of open-ended questions, I think, is not, it doesn't reach all brains. But my motivational interviewing training was essentially a respect for patient autonomy. So if you truly believe in patient autonomy, you are not attached to the outcome of behavioral change. You are not attached to the outcome of, for example, does someone quit smoking? All you are attached to is whether you showed up as a clinician and engaged in the relationship, essentially.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So that was really helpful as I did my certification during residency. So I did it in training, which was very helpful because that wasn't always the messaging being given.
Yeah.
That you're not attached to the outcome. And like, what is that? That's like PDA sweet spot of like
Mhm.
energetically, I'm in the room with you and I don't care whether you change your behavior. I'm not trying to control you.
Right.
I just want to engage in the relationship and like make some
Yeah.
reflective comments and not ask open-ended questions, but like skip that part and do the declarative language stuff of like, sounds like you don't really want to stop eating gluten. And if somebody if somebody doesn't want to stop eating gluten, I don't care. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm attached to the outcome of you having a good life, but like if you don't want to stop eating gluten, there's probably some good reasons for that. Like legitimately, I'm not gaming you. I'm not tricking you.
Mhm.
I literally don't care if you stop eating gluten.
Mhm.
So like that distinction of I'm attached to you having a good life. I am not attached to you following what comes out of my mouth. Like that is
Yeah.
an important distinction to me that I have always felt and that I think is like very much a part of this. And it's like when people like they want to be taught what to do for PDA, it's like you have to get to that place.
Mhm.
And like people who are, I don't know, I think when people are not PDAers themselves, they don't really actually understand that. The idea of
Yeah.
like I can be in a room with someone, including with a patient, and a patient's trying to get me to change my behavior, I can feel that in an email. And
Mhm.
it feels unsafe.
Mhm.
And I get it. I get why you're trying to get me to change my behavior, but like my limbic system actually regards this email as unsafe.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had an appointment with Sierra and I just said we're making some decisions around my health. And I said, I think we need to make this one decision because I know that I'm not gonna like I have ARFID and I'm in constant pain. So I know I can't make the other changes. So I think we're gonna make this decision based on I know I'm not gonna be able to change my behavior. And it was just like that makes so much sense, right? And so I think what's interesting to me being a patient, and I'm curious like what you'll say about this is I feel so informed. I feel like even if you care if I stop eating gluten or not, or whatever, the thing is that regardless of the choice I'm making, you will give me the information. It's almost like you'll strew the information or you'll and so maybe I'm not making that decision today, but all of a sudden in 6 months I can just notice I'm changing that decision, but not because you told me, but because I made the connection for myself.
That's so interesting that you say that. That's so interesting. I feel like the difference between a strew and what I think I'm doing, and like maybe it's not perceived this way, but I'm not gaming you. I'm not
Yeah.
screwing. I don't know what I didn't talk to Sierra. I have no idea what you talked about, but it's not I'm not sometimes I strew. I strew a lot of things. When I
Mm.
strew to Zachary, I'm like, it might rain. There's a coat in the car. That's
Mm.
true. I'm
Mhm.
hoping they wear like I am attached. I actually legitimately want them to wear their raincoat.
Mhm.
What I'm mostly doing is informing is like
Mhm.
I want you to know everything I
Yeah.
know about a thing. Otherwise, I don't feel like I'm engaging in a complete informed consent discussion. I used to get like negative reviews on when I was a medical student, because supervising residents would be like, why are you taking so long to consent the patient? Consent is not a verb that describes what I am doing. I am attempting to elicit consent. I am seeking to provide information for a patient to provide consent. I am not consenting the patient. And that is a cultural clash that I have
Yeah.
always felt. And so
Yeah.
sometimes people are like, sometimes if I don't have foot on the gas, which is rare, but like if I don't have foot on the gas, I might be like, how much information do you want about this? But like mostly I forget to do that and I info dump because, you know, I do that, like that is a thing that I do. And so some of informing is like I'm info dumping and I don't realize I'm doing it. Oops, sorry, now you're overwhelmed. So like I have to also monitor that, but I'm not sure. I feel like I'm
The interesting thing for me, and what maybe why I use the word strew, because it doesn't, I don't necessarily feel like you are strew. Like if that implies like you're trying to get me to change, I might feel like maybe it's strewing to me because it's just information coming. So maybe that's just more of like what, yeah, maybe it's just sort of like my perception. Because normally the doctor's just like, take this medication, it doesn't give you information. Then you're having to go home and Google, like, why am I taking this medication? And then you're on, like, I know why I'm on every single one of my medications. And there's been times where I haven't been able to take my medications, but I can come to you and say, I have a PDA response to taking my medications, you know, and then I get to figure it out. It's like, I shift my big pills to the night because I can't take them in the morning because I feel, you know what I mean? Like I start shifting it around, but it's partly because I know the importance. And then if I look at the pills, I know which ones to take. If I have to take one pill, I know what one pill to
prioritize because
take
you know what they are.
because I know what they are. And so for me, I think in my PDA response to self-care or for whatever those things, it might feel like, oh, I'm strewing the information you've given me.
Yeah.
Not that you're doing that.
Oh,
In
no,
order
that's
to get myself to,
interesting.
yeah. So that's the experience I have is it feels like, oh, this isn't a demand. This is like, okay, well, we just know if you don't take your guanfacine, you're going to lose speech in 5 days because
Right.
I've had that experience.
Great.
So
Matter of fact, it's neutral language.
yeah,
It's neutral
it's
language.
neutral.
There is no energy. It's like, yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, I like
Right.
remember last year when you didn't take your guanfacine for, I don't remember for that, but you know, if you know, it sounds like
Yeah.
you're remembering last year that, you know, you stopped taking your guanfacine 5 days later, you lost the ability to speak. You know, you
Yeah.
decide.
And you can remind me in that because it feels more of like a connection or relationally than it does like you're this authority figure powering over me.
Yes.
And so yeah, anyway, I just feel like your collaborative decision making with patients because I've not just witnessed it with myself, I witnessed it with other people. I'm just so curious about that. Um
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think that maybe when something I'm like working on or thinking about, because now Sierra and I do a lot of groups together, and so it's like cool that like I think Sierra is amazing, and I'm so grateful that you know, she's my child's clinician. Like anyway, and it's cool to also see different styles. Like energetically, Sierra comes from the same place as me, but her style of doing it is differently. And I think that Sierra, one of the places that Sierra does a much better job than I do, I think, is um, when people are overwhelmed, I am an all or nothing patient autonomy flag waver. And I tend to say, here are some options I can think about. Here are like the 2 or 3 like options that I might choose in your situation. Which are you leaning toward? And we can talk about it. Sierra asks another layer. Do you want to decide? Do you want me to decide? Do you want us to decide together? Which is like, huh, that's so interesting. Where it's like, that would never have occurred to me.
So I think what I think about in terms of like medicine or, you know, diagnoses or any of those kinds of things is so important, even if they are technically disorders. What I'm saying to you is that when you and Sierra treat, and All Brains Belong, anyone at All Brains Belong doesn't treat me as a disorder for having those things. And I think that is fundamentally the difference between traditional healthcare And when you go to a traditional healthcare, it's like, what did you do to cause it? Like the energy of it. And, it's like, go lose weight and exercise and then come back and talk to me. That's how it always was. Like, if I got my hands dirty as a little kid, it's like, go get really dirty and then come back and talk to me. Like, you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're too. And when you come here and you can actually be honest about what your experience is, because you're not going to be seen as a disorder, you're not going to be pathologized, is that to me is radical.
Thank you again to our moderators, Liz, Amy, Sarah, and Rye. Not just for your work on this presentation, but for the last year and all that's gone into Brain Clubs. I'd be happy to open up to a couple of questions. I think we have time for a couple of questions or comments about anything that has stood out. Hey, Sierra.
I just wanted to say the language of like, do you want me to decide for you? Do you want some info to think about it? Like that, I can't take credit facts. That comes from patients too. That comes from people asking like, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed by all these options. Can you send me some info and I can think about it? Or I don't really know. Can you choose for me? And so I think it fits really well into kind of what I think one of the big missions of All Brains Belong is, and I think one of the great things about Brain Club is that, and what I think these next few Brain Clubs show is that like community guided organization of like, well, just it comes from what people need and what people want, and then we just build from there and just kind of create this structure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great segue to next week's Brain Club, where we talk about some of the systems of how we run our programs here, including that solutions come from those closest to the problem, and we ask people what they need and try to do it. Anyone else have anything that's standing out to you? Thanks, Sean. Some of the themes that stood out to us, elicited by the very thoughtful questions of our moderators, is around the protective nature of PDA in terms of if you have a nervous system that is reacting to threats, that's protective and allows that nervous system to protect the person as well as more than the person. And that our autonomic nervous system's job is to protect us. I linked in the chat earlier to Nervous System 101, where we talk about the autonomic nervous system and its function and how it works. I think that's like coming to understand the autonomic nervous system, I think, is one of like the core parts of the journey as a neurodivergent person learning to navigate the world. And understanding your autonomic nervous system is what allows reconnecting with intuition. And of course, respect for not just patient autonomy, but all people's autonomy in all contexts. And I think that connects with what Sierra shared as well. So with that, thank you everyone. And our part 2 of our community moderator interview will continue next Tuesday. We hope you will join us back then. Have a good week.